All right, welcome. Today, we are getting our hands dirty. We're going to build a fully automated software factory right from the ground up. I'm talking about taking raw code and turning it into a live running application, all without lifting a finger.
So, what's the grand plan? It's actually pretty straightforward, but man, is it powerful. We're going to grab some source code, just plain old code sitting in a GitHub repository. And with a bit of automation magic, we'll turn it into a real live application that's up and running in a Kubernetes cluster, all automatically.
And how are we going to pull this off?
With a Jenkins pipeline, of course. Now, the best way to think about this is like a classic factory assembly line. We've got 5 distinct stations, and our code is going to move down the line, getting built and packaged at each stop. We're going to break down every single one of these steps from start to finish.
Okay, let's get into it. First things first, right? Before we can even think about firing up that assembly line, we've got to stock the factory floor. We need the right tools, the right machinery, and maybe most importantly, the right security passes to get everything done.
So let's talk about those security passes. In the Jenkins world, we call them credentials. We need 3 of them. One for GitHub, so we can actually get our code, one for Docker Hub, which is like our shipping warehouse for the finished product, and one for Kubernetes, our final destination. And let me tell you, locking these down securely inside Jenkins, that's step 1. It's absolutely non-negotiable for building a system you can trust.
All right, passes are sorted. Now for the machinery. In Jenkins, this means installing plugins. Think of these as specialized tools for each station on our assembly line. We need the Git plugin to grab the raw materials, our code. We need the Maven plugin to actually build our Java app. The Docker plugin is for putting our app into those shipping containers we talked about. And finally, the Kubernetes plugin lets us deliver it to the customer.
Last but not least, we need to set up our main toolbox. There's this awesome feature in Jenkins called Global Tool Configuration. We just go in there and tell it, hey, we're going to need Maven for our builds. And here's the cool part. We don't have to install it ourselves. Jenkins just handles it. It downloads the right version and makes sure every single pipeline uses the exact same setup. That means no more "it works on my machine" headaches. Perfect consistency every time. Okay, the factory is stocked. The tools are in place. Now it's time to look at the master blueprint, the set of instructions that runs this whole operation. We're talking about the pipeline script itself, the Jenkins file. The very first thing you'll notice is that the entire script is wrapped inside this node block. So what's a node? Well, in Jenkins speak, a node is just a machine, an agent that does all the heavy lifting. So this node block is basically us telling Jenkins, hey, go grab us a workspace, a piece of the factory floor, because all the work we're about to define needs to happen right there. All right, let's follow the code as it enters the assembly line. We're heading to the very first station where we pick up our raw materials. And in our case, that's the source code. Station 1, Git clone. You'll see each of our stations is defined as a stage. It's just a way to give a name to a chunk of work, and it looks really nice in the Jenkins interface. This first stage does exactly what it sounds like. It uses that Git plugin we installed to reach out to GitHub and pull all of our source code down into the Jenkins workspace. You know, the thing I love about this is how simple and secure it is. See that credentials ID? That's our super secret GitHub pass, being used safely without ever showing the actual password. Then you've got the URL, which just points to where the code lives. It's brilliant. And think about it. If you get either of these wrong, the whole assembly line grinds to a halt right here. Fail fast, right? It saves you a ton of headaches down the road. Okay, code is on the factory floor. What's next? We move to station 2, the Maven clean build. This is where we stop having just a bunch of text files and start assembling them into a real working application. The real magic here is that little command at the end, clean package. The clean part is just housekeeping. It gets rid of any old stuff from previous builds. But package, that's the powerhouse. It tells Maven to compile all our Java code, run all the automated tests to make sure nothing's broken, and then bundle everything up into a single file called a war file. Basically, this is our finished product, all boxed up and ready for the next station. On to station 3, build Docker image. So we've got our product, that .war file, but how do we ship it? We put it in a standardized shipping container, and that's exactly what a Docker image is. It's brilliant because it bundles our app and everything it needs to run. This means it'll work exactly the same way here, on your laptop, in the cloud, literally anywhere. So this Docker build command, what's it actually doing? Well, it's looking for a special instruction manual in our code called a Docker file. The Docker T part is just for tagging, giving our container a name so we can find it later.
And that little dot at the end? That just tells Docker, hey, the instruction manual you're looking for, it's right here in this folder. See how everything is starting to connect?
And that Docker file, it's usually super simple. It's just a 3-step recipe. First, from. We tell it to start with an off-the-shelf part, a Tomcat web server. No need to build that from scratch. Second, copy. We take our precious .war file, the one we just built, and place it right inside that server. And third, expose. We basically cut a window in the container on port 8080 so that web traffic can get in and out. That's it.
Okay, check this out. Our application is built, tested, and sealed inside its own portable container. It's ready to go. We're on the home stretch now with just 2 final stations left, the shipping department and the final delivery. And here we are at Station 4, the shipping department. This is where we take our container and send it out into the world. The pipeline first securely logs into Docker Hub, our central warehouse, and then it runs this Docker push command. It's literally just pushing our container from the Jenkins server up to that public warehouse, making it ready for any system to grab it. Now, I gotta point out that with credentials block you see in the full script, this is so important for security. What it does is genius. It temporarily unlocks our Docker Hub password and puts it into a variable, but only for the Docker login step. The second that step is done, the secret is locked away again. This means it never, ever gets printed out in the logs. It's a huge security win. And now, the moment we've been waiting for, the final stop. Station 5, deploy to Kubernetes. It all comes down to this one single command, kube apply. We're essentially handing a blueprint over to our Kubernetes cluster and saying, make this happen. Kubernetes then takes over, pulls our container from Docker Hub, and brings our application to life. But wait, that command is pointing to a YAML file. What's that all about? Well, that file is the blueprint I was talking about. It contains every single detail Kubernetes needs to know to run our application correctly. So the big question is, what exactly is inside that file? It basically boils down to 2 main parts. On the left, you have the deployment. Think of this as the blueprint for the house itself. It tells Kubernetes, hey, I need you to build this using the image we just pushed, and I want 2 copies, or replicas, running at all times just in case one fails. Then, on the right, you have the service. If the deployment is the house, the service is the doorbell and the mailing address. It gives the outside world a stable way to connect to our app through something called a node port so people can actually use it. And just like that, it's done. Think about what we just did. From a developer pushing a single line of code, we now have a fully tested, packaged, and deployed application running live in the cloud. We haven't just run a script, we have built a complete, fully automated software factory. And it's ready and waiting to do this whole dance again the moment the next code change comes in. You know, this whole process is just incredibly powerful. Once you get the hang of it, you start seeing opportunities for automation everywhere. So my question to you is this. Now that you've seen the blueprint for a software factory, what are you going to build? What tedious manual process in your own work are you going to automate next? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.